the motorcycle, the Enduro that I built, and the battery I put in that one is a 26 amp hour battery, which gets me to work and back a few days, but it really doesn't give me the range that I would like. So I bought some more surplus batteries from Battery Hookup. They get a lot of batteries out of like medical equipment and stuff like that. See, these batteries are in great shape. They're really not used a whole lot except for if power goes out. So they're kind of like new, and you get them, you know, for substantially less money. So I could tell you the specific models that I buy from them, but really they go through new sets all the time. So if you just go to their website and kind of see what their inventory is like at any given time, you should be able to buy large quantities of batteries from them that are in packs like this. So these ones worked out really well. There's two sets of 19 in each of these packs, and like I did with my first battery, I really wanted to be able to use as much as possible from the batteries. That way the cost would be down. This 72 volt 60 amp hour battery ended up costing me probably $500 when you add some more nickel plating and some wire and stuff like that. It was a little over 400 for the batteries and then all the extra equipment. But so in this video, I'll just show you the biggest thing, of course, is just being really careful, because when you have a lot of cells exposed, you want to make sure you have a clean work surface and you don't have metal. I mean, it's amazing how just a strip of solder crossing over 2 points could give you a big pop, and you don't want to damage the cells. So you just need to be really careful. But I did them kind of in waves. I built two 32.6 volt batteries, which I really like doing it that way. I just charge two separate batteries, balance two separate batteries, and I can do it all really cheap with cheap balancers and stuff like that. So the first wave of work I did on it is I did the entire bottom of all 5 packs to make this 36 volt battery, and then I repeated again when I made another 36 volt battery. So just to make sure I didn't short anything out, I would spot weld on additional nickel plating on all of them, because the nickel plating that is on the pack is really thin. It's made for low amp draw. So I went ahead and used the thicker nickel metal and just put a whole nother layer of nickel metal on each of them. So I did all 5 batteries. I did the bottom of all 5 batteries that connected them together and beefed up the connection so I could pull a lot more current from it. And then once I was done doing the bottom, I went back and I did the top of each one. And the top is where I jumped them from one battery to the next. So the only thing I had to do on the bottom of the batteries was add some of the balancing wire, just to balance. So you just want to have one wire on each set of 19 cells to so that you had your balancing. And then once I got the top, I made sure I soldered on the thick wire before I spot welded it onto the battery. That way I didn't have to put any heat on the battery other than the spot welding, which is real quick. And I was also able to just put it back into the nice rubber sleeves that they came in. So I was able to keep them pretty well protected. The only spot you could see is at the end where the wire comes out from the positive of one side and the negative of the other. So it just daisy chained two banks of cells connected to the next two, connected to the next two. And so I just went right down the line. I did all the bottoms, and then when I did the tops, that's when I had to connect them to each other. So I was able to really minimize the amount of exposed batteries and stuff like that. And, you know, being on a budget, being able to build a 60 amp hour 72 volt battery for under $500 seemed like a killer deal for me. I did build it. You can configure yours any way you want. I ended up configuring them a 3-on-2, or 2-on-3, and that way I built 2 of those that are 2-on-3, and I could rotate them so that it ends up being 3x4 in the bike, because there's one area that's a little taller than the rest of it, so it's able to slide right into the motorcycle. But you can configure yours any way you want. You know, again, I just kind of post these videos just to help you guys out on finding ways to build things cheaper. Not all of us have unlimited money, and other than just taking your time and really being careful not to short anything out, limiting the amount of exposure, you know, heat to the battery, you want to limit that as much as possible. You can see I do each battery one at a time, and then I put it back in its protective sleeve and I tape it up so that each individual pack basically ends up back the way it started, and then they're all piled together. So looks like at this stage of the video I'm doing the last one, and I did use Anderson Dean's connectors for the positive and negative coming out, and then I just daisy chained the two of them together, so I end up with 72 volts. But you can see here how I do it off the battery. I solder on those connectors, and that way there's no none of that is going to the battery. You don't damage the cells with the excess heat. Right there I put it back into the Dean's connector, and so this was the final one. I was able to put the last one in, and then once I had all 5 done, I made sure I had a balancing lead on each one, and then I just taped them off and numbered them 1 through 10 so that I knew which ones were which when I solder on the balancing lead. And then I just used some heat shrink there, and once I get it all plugged into the heatsink and heated up, then the battery is almost done. I just need to solder on the connectors for the balancing. And I mean, it did take several hours. I moved inside to solder on those plugs. Those are some regular JST plugs, because that just works for my balancer. Obviously, a lot of people just use a permanent balancer. Depends on how big of a balancer you want to use. I use small little balancers that probably take a little while to balance, and I only balance them while I'm charging it. So, I mean, depending upon your application and how fast you want to charge it, you can get the big balancers, but as you probably know, a big BMS could cost hundreds of dollars, whereas my balancers are like $10, and I charge it at a slower rate. So I'll charge it for 10 hours at 2 amps, and then I'm fine with that. I don't always need to charge fast. I do have a big charger. I could charge it really fast. So all I'm doing here is soldering on the balancing leads. And again, it's just because the way my balancer is set up, I have 2 sets of 5. Well, actually 6, and then I check the voltage and make sure that all of them are connected and working properly. So I do the first 5, and then I did the second 5. This is the second 5. And then I mark them appropriately so that when I plug it into the balancer, I know which one goes into which. But again, you just take your time and you just make sure it's connected properly. I use, good heat sink and electrical tape to keep it all secure. And I mean, it's probably not waterproof. I haven't really made mine waterproof. I could probably build a box to put it in. And that was about it. That's how I built a very inexpensive 60 amp hour 36 volt battery. And then, like I said, I just did this exact same thing twice. And now I have almost 3 times the runtime on my Enduro.